In the previous episode, the mighty All Might triumphed over All for One in a heart-pounding life-or-death clash, leaving the people profoundly inspired by the heroic legend's brave victory. After that intense battle with All for One, All Might declared that the next challenge would fall to the young one's power. Reporter Tokuda from the Juko newspaper noticed about 4 months ago that All Might suddenly became a teacher at UA, leading him to believe All Might had found his successor in that academy. Many believe that Mirio from UA's Big Three will be the one to carry on All Might's legacy. But right now, All Might is focusing on teaching Class 1A at UA. So, Tokuda thinks that All Might's glorious successor is studying in Class 1A. The next morning, Class 1A was surprised to hear that the duo newspaper would be interviewing them. Mineta kept hoping for female reporters, so Aizawa quickly covered his mouth to stop him from saying anything reckless. Tokuda will observe and write about the everyday life of Class 1A's students, and everyone was thrilled at the idea of being featured in the news. But in reality, Tokuda is using the interview as a cover to investigate who will inherit All Might's power in this class. In the days that followed, Tokuda stayed in the dorms, snapping photos of the students' daily routines. He even went to their classes to capture moments of their studies. And he noticed that Bakugo and Todoroki stood out as the most promising in the class. Yet, his reporter's intuition told him that Deku was the one All Might had chosen. While Deku was training, All Might surprised him with a bag of hot steamed buns, which turned out to be a tearful gift from a shop owner who recognized his hero. As the top hero, All Might's appearances always sparked wild excitement among the people, and that's only natural, but All Might believes that Deku will soon take his place as the symbol of peace. As soon as All Might left, Tokuda approached Deku for a private chat. Tokuda told Deku that he was a long-time die-hard fan of All Might. Because All Might once saved Tokuda's father from a factory explosion when he was a child. Beyond saving his father, All Might is a grand symbol of peace to Tokuda. So, he's worried about society now that All Might has suddenly decided to retire. However, Tokuda showed Deku a photo he took of him with All Might, making Deku a bit flustered. Tokuda's quirk lets him create cameras all over his body, so he can snap pictures anytime. Tokuda also said he's certain Deku is All Might's successor, and has investigated Deku's past battles. Tokuda noted that Deku always acts like a true hero, so he affirmed that Deku will soon replace All Might as the new symbol of peace. Tokuda promised not to write about or reveal Deku's story to anyone, but he suddenly hugged Deku and took a selfie as a keepsake, planning to use it for a book about Deku when he becomes a symbol of peace. Deku asked to intern at Gran Torino's agency to improve his skills, but Gran Torino suggested Deku try interning with All Might's former sidekick, Sir Nightai. Meanwhile, Twice led a masked figure named Overhaul to meet Tamura, and today Overhaul and Tamura want to meet to discuss a partnership, because Overhaul is now leading a criminal group called the Shi-Hasakai. The Shi-Hasakai was once an underground organization defeated by All Might and other heroes, so now they're under strict police surveillance. Overhaul said he's been living in hiding until he heard All for One was defeated, and he wants to become the leader of all villain groups, including the Criminal League. Overhaul even claimed Tamura doesn't know how to plan, which is why he lost so many followers in past operations. And Overhaul suggested Tamura let him take the lead since he has a solid plan. But Tamura didn't like Overhaul's arrogant tone. Mr. Compress suddenly pulled Overhaul toward him and launched an attack. But Overhaul touched Mr. Compress, causing him to explode in front of the shocked Tamura and his crew. Mr. Compress unfortunately lost an arm in his attempt to seal Overhaul. And as Tamura moved to attack Overhaul, one of his henchmen suddenly appeared to block the blow. Right after, members of the Shi-Hasakai group charged in to support Overhaul, but Overhaul didn't want to fight Tamura, so he ordered a retreat, and when Twice and Toga demanded revenge for Mr. Compress, Tamura stopped them because they weren't a match for Overhaul. Deku asked All Might to introduce him to Sir Nightai so he could intern at his agency. But All Might said there's an issue between him and Sir Nightai, so he couldn't meet him. However, Deku pleaded desperately for All Might's help, as he wanted to work with his former sidekick to sharpen his skills. Right after, All Might suddenly called Mirio to the teacher's room for a talk. It turned out Mirio is interning at Sir Nightai's agency, so All Might wanted him to help Deku get an internship there. Mirio agreed to help Deku intern at Sir Nightai's, filling him with joy. In fact, Principal Nezu had previously suggested Mirio as All Might's successor, but All Might changed his mind after meeting Deku. The next day, Bakugo and Todoroki had to retake the provisional license exam since they failed last time. Meanwhile, Deku was being taken by Mirio to Sir Nightai's agency for an internship. But Mirio warned that Deku must make Sir Nightai laugh at least once during their talk to have a chance. At that moment, a sidekick named Bubble Girl was giving Sir Nightai his weekly report. But Sir Nightai found Bubble Girl's report delivery utterly dull. As Deku entered, he was startled to see Sir Nightai poking Bubble Girl with a tickler. Right away, Deku tried to make Sir Nightai laugh by imitating All Might's face, but Sir Nightai was furious at Deku for turning All Might into a joke. However, Sir Nightai pointed out that All Might has even more wrinkles than that. In fact, Sir Nightai remembers every single wrinkle on All Might's posters perfectly. Looking closely, Deku saw the room filled with All Might memorabilia and posters. Then, Deku told Sir Nightai he wanted to intern at his agency. But Sir Nightai asked what benefit he would gain from letting Deku intern there. He also wanted to know if Deku could contribute to society like All Might. Sir Nightai gave Deku exactly 3 minutes to grab the stamp from his hand and stamp the internship contract himself, and he told Bubble Girl and Mirio to leave so he could handle things with Deku. Mirio felt a bit worried for Deku, knowing Sir Nighthai's powers were no joke. Deku was feeling extremely tense facing Sir Nightai, but he was determined to get that stamp no matter what. However, Deku kept charging at Sir Nightai but couldn't touch the stamp in his hand, as Sir Nightai could see his every intention and move. Because Sir Nighthai's quirk allows him to foresee his opponent's intentions after touching them. Sir Nightai revealed he wanted Mirio to succeed All Might, not Deku, and he wouldn't accept a weakling like Deku inheriting one for all. Yet, Deku refused to shatter All Might's hopes in him and moved at a blinding speed to evade Sir Nighthai's vision. But Deku still couldn't reach the stamp in Sir Nighthai's hand. As to him, Deku's movements were just a cheap imitation of Gran Torino. Sir Nightai dodged Deku's attacks while taunting him to throw him off balance. Deku declared he would make Sir Nightai recognize him. Right after, Deku flung the documents off Sir Nighthai's desk to obscure his view, and Deku leaped behind Sir Nightai, dashing to grab the stamp. But Sir Nightai easily dodged, sending Deku crashing face first into the wall. In the end, Deku failed to get the stamp from Sir Nightai after the 3 minutes ended. But Sir Nightai suddenly realized Deku had avoided all the All Might photos while jumping around. Sir Nightai picked up on something and agreed to let Deku intern at his agency, much to Mirio's delight. And he handed the stamp to Deku so he could stamp the internship contract himself. Deku's classmates were shocked to learn he landed an internship at Sir Nighthai's agency and were eager to find their own to keep up. Bakugo and Todoroki still couldn't intern because they lacked their licenses. Deku's first task on his internship was patrolling the city, while Sir Nightai secretly investigated Overhaul and the Isekai group. Deku would be guided by Mirio on patrol since it was his first time. Their job was just to patrol. Tracking Overhaul was for Sir Nightai and Bubble Girl. However, as they walked, a timid girl suddenly bumped into Deku, and Overhaul stepped out from the alley, terrifying both. Overhaul pretended the girl, named Eri, was his daughter, and Mirio played along cheerfully to avoid suspicion. Mirio signaled Deku to keep walking so Overhaul wouldn't get suspicious. But Eri clung tightly to Deku in sheer terror, begging him not to leave. Seeing this, Deku confronted Overhaul about what he did to make the girl so afraid. Mirio worried that Overhaul might suspect them because of Deku's actions. Overhaul invited Deku and Mirio to his house to prove Eri was his daughter. But deep in the alley, Eri realized Overhaul planned to eliminate them both. So, she pulled away from Deku and ran back to him. Eri's sudden move left Deku and Mirio completely stunned, but Mirio realized she did it to protect them. As soon as they returned to their hideout, Chisaki dealt with the henchman who let Eri escape. Meanwhile, Mirio and Deku reported their encounter with Chisaki to Nightai. Deku was deeply worried about Eri, seeing her wrapped in bandages. But Nightai warned Deku not to act rashly and said he'd get other heroes to help. Chisaki made Eri sit in a sealed room for something, and he suddenly received a call from Tomura to discuss their partnership. The next morning, Bakugo and Sero arrived at class battered from retaking their provisional license exam. Deku was still thinking about Eri's safety. And, during class, he was so distracted thinking about her that he couldn't focus. That afternoon, as All Might jogged in the park, Deku rushed to him and asked why All Might didn't choose someone outstanding like Mirio as his successor instead of him. All Might explained that Nightai used to plan his operations and had advised him to retire after the All-for-One battle 6 years ago, because his injuries were severe and any strong enemy could end him at any time. Yet, All Might wanted to keep being a hero to maintain hope and peace for everyone. Meanwhile, Nightai foresaw All Might dying in an upcoming battle. All Might ignored Nightai's warnings, even knowing his future sight was never wrong. And years later, Nightai was upset when he learned All Might chose a quirkless kid as his successor. All Might said Nightai can foresee others' futures up to 7 years ahead, and Deku felt a sharp pain knowing All Might's predicted death was drawing near. However, All Might believes he can change his fate as he wishes. Hearing that, Deku promised to grow stronger and help change that destiny together. Two villains with gigantification quirks were battling, tearing the city apart, when Todoroki from the Big Three suddenly appeared and took one down with a whirlwind. Ochako and Tsuyu flew in with a pile of rocks, delivering the finishing blow to the villains. It turned out Todoroki and the two girls from Class 1A were interning at heroine Ryukyu's agency, and she said they'd soon support Night Eye's branch in investigating the Isekai. Meanwhile, Tomura went straight to the Isekai hideout to talk with Chisaki and agreed to follow his plan but wouldn't be under his command. Plus, Tomura wanted to know exactly what Chisaki's plan was. Chisaki's henchmen, Kurono and Mimic, demanded to deal with Tomura for his insolence, but Chisaki told them to back off and agreed to Tomura's demands. And Tomura learned Chisaki is developing a weapon to temporarily erase quirks. Meanwhile, Kirishima and Tamaki Amajiki from the Big Three were interning with hero Fat Gum, who thought Tamaki could be a rare talent if he overcame his gloominess. Fat Gum's group accidentally encountered fleeing robbers, and Fat Gum caught them but let one flying villain escape. Tamaki. Tamaki grew octopus tentacles from his arms to catch the flying villain, as his quirk lets him mimic traits from the food he eats. The crowd cheered after witnessing Fat Gum's group catch the robbers, but a silver-haired accomplice in the crowd shot a bullet made by Chisaki at Tamaki. And it turned out Chisaki created that quirk-erasing bullet based on All for One's power-stealing ability. Tamaki was hit by the silver-haired villain, while Kirishima hardened his body just in time. Seeing the silver-haired villain flee, Kirishima chased after him. Tamaki panicked when he realized he couldn't use his quirk anymore. After an intense chase, Kirishima cornered the silver-haired villain into a dead end and unleashed a terrifying punch straight to his face, knocking him out completely. Right after that, Kirishima helped the silver-haired villain up to take him to the police station for questioning. But suddenly, the silver-haired villain injected some kind of drug into himself and unleashed hundreds of sharp blades from his body. Kirishima realized the silver-haired villain had used a drug to boost his powers, allowing him to fire razor-sharp blades that could harm even Kirishima's steel-hard body. However, after the Kamino battle, Kirishima had trained relentlessly to strengthen his abilities, and his body shattered all the villain's blades in a second attack with his new skill called unbreakable. He could only maintain this hardened form for 30 to 40 seconds, but that was enough time for Kirishima to rush in and knock the silver-haired villain out cold. After being defeated by Kirishima, the silver-haired villain started crying like a spoiled child, and he took advantage of Kirishima's distraction to fire blades from behind and make a quick escape. But Fat Gum suddenly appeared, blocking the silver-haired villain and swallowing him whole with his fat absorption quirk. Fat Gum and the civilians praised Kirishima for his brave fight. Yet, they were still puzzled about the bullet that had temporarily stripped Tamaki of his powers. The next morning, Deku and his friends on work study woke up early to head to their assignments. Somehow, they all ended up going in the same direction and boarding the same train. And when they arrived at Night Eye's agency, they spotted the Big Three group there too. It turned out Night Eye was organizing a meeting with many heroes, including Ryukyu, Fat Gum, and Ochako with Tsuyu, who were surprised to see All Might arrive. Night Eye explained they were discussing the Isekai crime organization, and during the investigation he discovered Chisaki had been in contact with Tomura. Fat Gum revealed to everyone the quirk-erasing bullet that had hit Tamaki, but Tamaki's powers had fully recovered after just one night of rest. And that bullet directly affects human genes, unlike All Might's quirk. When analyzing the bullet, Fat Gum found blood and human cells inside, possibly from someone with a quirk that erases powers. Additionally, the Isekai is distributing drugs that enhance quirks. Night Eye informed everyone that Chisaki's quirk allows him to reconstruct and destroy matter, and he might have used it to turn Eri's blood into quirk-erasing bullets. There's even a chance he's trying to create permanent quirk-erasing bullets. Deku and Mirio were furious after hearing this horrifying news, and both promised everyone they would save Eri no matter the cost. The challenge now is finding where Chisaki is holding Eri captive. The Isekai's network is vast, so Night Eye called in many heroes for support. Everyone suggested Night Eye use his foresight to see the future of some people here and locate where Chisaki is keeping her. But Night Eye's foresight can only be used once a day on one person. Meanwhile, Eri can't hold on much longer, as Chisaki drains her life day by day. Night Eye promised to think of a way to find Eri's location as soon as possible. And Aizawa met Deku. And All Might met Deku and his friends, telling them they didn't need to join this mission. Since they're on work study, they were only invited to the meeting, but this is too dangerous for students. But Mirio and Deku promised they would rescue Eri and return safely together. It turned out Gran Torino sent Deku to Night Eye to help him reconcile with All Might. And Night Eye feels Deku has qualities very similar to All Might, even though he always seems strict with him. Chisaki assigned a blonde subordinate to watch over Eri, with the task of spoiling her with toys so she wouldn't try to escape again. Deku and the other work-study students must keep the eerie rescue operation secret, and everyone notices their movements have become sharper than before. Deku is extremely worried right now, so he can't focus on anything. And seeing Deku staring blankly at his bowl of rice, Tenya and Sero asked if he was okay. Tenya said that if Deku had any troubles, he should share them with his friends to solve together. But Deku suddenly burst into tears and buried his face in his food, leaving Tenya and Sero stunned. Meanwhile, the pro-heroes are working hard to investigate all of Shihasekai's territories. Not only to find where Eri is held, but also where Chisaki hides the quirk-erasing bullets. And Deku, with the other students, are anxiously waiting for orders from above. That evening, Deku and his work-study friends received a call to assemble from Night Eye, and they finally had hope to free Eri from the villain's grasp. The next morning, Night Eye revealed that Chisaki is holding Eri in his own house. Because Night Eye saw the blonde Shihasekai member buying a toy for a little girl and heading to Chisaki's house, so he pretended to chat with him and used his foresight quirk. That's how he saw the toy being brought to Chisaki's house for Eri. The heroes decided to work with the police to raid and arrest Chisaki at his home. And Mirio and Deku regained their spirits, ready for the battle ahead. Right after, Mirio and Deku put on their hero costumes and headed to Chisaki's house. And Chisaki had already heard the news that heroes were preparing to attack his home. The heroes will coordinate with the police for this operation. And, according to Night Eye's vision, Eri is being held in an underground base beneath Chisaki's house. Deku wondered why he didn't see Gran Torino, and Night Eye explained that Gran Torino is monitoring the villain alliances instead. Meanwhile, Chisaki visited the former Shihasekai boss, who is lying in bed ill. At 8 o'clock that morning, the police and pro-heroes surrounded Chisaki's house. But before they could even ring the bell, the giant from Hasekai burst through the door and attacked. However, Ryukyu transformed into a dragon and quickly pinned the giant down. And the police and heroes rushed inside to storm the villain's hideout. Chisaki's gatekeepers were easily subdued by the heroes, but Deku and the others kept charging in to find the holding area. From elementary school, Tamaki has always been shy and timid, and Tamaki would just sit alone, never talking to friends. But Mirio took the initiative to talk to Tamaki and help him connect with others. So to Tamaki, Mirio always shines with his cheerful, smiling personality. The Hasekai members swarmed out in numbers to block the police and heroes. But Deku and half the heroes slipped through the crowd and entered the house. And thanks to the blonde member's memories, Night Eye found the secret passage leading to Chisaki's underground system. Centipede and Bubble Girl controlled the enemies emerging from the basement, and Night Eye led the other heroes down to find Chisaki. However, Chisaki had erected a wall in the middle of the path to block the heroes. So Kirishima and Deku had to smash the wall to let everyone through. Mimic injected a power-boosting drug and merged into the walls, and Mimic controlled the entire basement, transforming it with his mimicry quirk. The mimicry quirk lets Mimic merge with objects and change them, and he turned the basement into a maze to stop the heroes from advancing. Everyone worried they wouldn't reach Eri in time if Mimic kept them trapped here, so Mirio used his permeation quirk to phase through the walls and find Eri before it was too late. Right after, Mimic created a pit under the heroes' feet, making them fall, and 3 subordinates from Chisaki's 8 Bullets group were waiting below. Tamaki told everyone to keep going while he handled the 3 alone. And when Toya, the blonde one, tried to attack Tamaki, Aizawa erased his quirk. So Tamaki seized the chance to unleash octopus tentacles to restrain them. Not wanting to hold everyone back, Tamaki urged them to move on. And though deeply worried about Tamaki fighting 3 enemies alone, the group had to keep going to save Eri. Fat Gum believed Tamaki couldn't lose to the 8 bullets, as he knew his work-study intern was very strong. And as Tamaki tried to knock out the 8 bullets, Toya suddenly stood up and counterattacked. At the same time, the 3 regained their quirks after Aizawa left. Toya's quirk lets him absorb everything he sees around him, and Yu, the spiky one, can create extremely tough crystal scales, and he threw a devastating crystal punch straight at Tamaki's face. However, Tamaki blocked Yu's punch with a super-hard octopus arm, and he transformed into his ultimate form, called Kraken, attacking the 8 bullets with a swarm of tentacles. But Tebe, the faced one, bit through Tamaki's tentacles with his devouring quirk. And while Tamaki dealt with Tabe, Yu landed a surprise punch to his face. Yu immediately pinned Tamaki against the wall, immobilizing him. And the 8 bullets are a ragtag group Tamaki once picked up, so they're fiercely loyal to him. As Yu prepared a finishing blow on Tamaki, he suddenly kicked a crystal shard into Toya's face. And Tamaki absorbed Yu's crystal, turning his chest into crystal to block the punch. Tamaki then summoned a bird leg and slammed the 3 8 bullets into the wall. And seeing they couldn't move anymore, Tamaki collapsed from exhaustion. Meanwhile, Deku and the other heroes were still navigating the massive basement, and Aizawa believed Mimic had to be near the areas he was controlling, so if any part of his body showed, Aizawa could erase his quirk. Centipede and Bubble Girl subdued the Isekai members above, and it turned out the former boss of their group was once a man of honor. But since Chisaki took over, he brought in villains to control the entire Isekai. As the heroes moved, Mimic suddenly manipulated the wall to attack Aizawa. But Fat Gum jumped in to block the hit, so he was pushed into a deep pit by Mimic. Kirishima fell down with Fat Gum because he also tried to protect Aizawa. And, as a Isekai member charged from afar, Kirishima hardened himself, but the enemy punched him away and unleashed a barrage on Fat Gum. After taking that devastating punch, Kirishima's hardened arm shattered, leaving him unable to move it. And as Fat Gum tried to attack, another enemy created a shield to block him. And these two are from the 8 bullets, named Rapper and Tengai. Seeing Kirishima afraid, Fat Gum tried to calm him, and Rapper told Tengai to drop the shield so he could fight Fat Gum. Fat Gum's absorption couldn't hold up long against Rapper's punches, but Fat Gum kept absorbing Rapper's devastating blows to see who would fall first. Meanwhile, Kirishima could only watch helplessly as his mentor fought, feeling utterly powerless, and Kirishima's spirit was plunging into total crisis. Back in middle school, Kirishima stood up for a younger kid being bullied by thugs, but as he charged in, they hit him with a rock because his hardening quirk was still weak back then. However, Mina suddenly appeared and turned the situation around with her fun antics, making the thugs befriend the kid. And Mina is a cheerful, pretty girl who was admired by many in middle school. Kirishima, on the other hand, felt ordinary since his quirk could only harden a little. One afternoon on his way home, Kirishima saw 2 classmates being threatened by a massive giant. But Kirishima froze in fear, even though he wanted to save them. However, Mina bravely stepped in to protect them, making the giant back off. And Kirishima felt weak and useless compared to Mina. Later, Kirishima read about Deku fighting a villain to save his friend, and Kirishima realized he didn't have that kind of courage. Yet, always admiring the hero Crimson Riot, Kirishima decided to change himself to become a hero like him, and Kirishima went to apologize to Mina and the 2 classmates for not saving them. After graduating middle school, Kirishima enrolled in UA Hero Academy, and he reunited with Mina at UA, with a fresh new red hair look, to her delight. Back to the present, Fat Gum had absorbed hundreds of Rapper's punches into his body, and he could release all that stored power in one massive attack. As Rapper prepared his final strike, Kirishima leaped in to block his punches, and this time Rapper couldn't push Kirishima back. Right as Kirishima fell, Fat Gum had charged his energy. He unleashed a powerful punch through, and he unleashed a powerful punch that pierced Tengai's shield, blasting both him and Rapper away. Meanwhile, Chisaki and Kurono were taking Eri to the lab to complete the permanent quirk-erasing bullets, and Tamura had sent Toga and Twice to assist Chisaki in this operation. Kirishima is gravely wounded and can no longer move a muscle. And after using up his fat layer, Fat Gum has slimmed down so much that Kirishima can't recognize him anymore. Fat Gum took Kirishima on as an intern because he loved the boy's lively spirit during the sports festival, and it was Tamaki who introduced Kirishima here, after the boy personally asked for help in class. Fat Gum looks shocked to see Rapper still standing strong, but Rapper tells Fat Gum to take Kirishima to the medical room, with no intention of fighting further. Rapper is a warrior so powerful that no one can match him, but he's impressed by Kirishima's warrior spirit and now wants a rematch someday. Now Kirishima is recognized not just by Fat Gum, but even by his enemy. Rapper leads Fat Gum to the medical room and helps bandage Kirishima's wounds. It turns out Rapper joined the Isekai because he lost to Chisaki. In that fight, Chisaki kept killing Rapper and reviving him with his bizarre powers. Fat Gum's face pales in shock at how overpowered Chisaki's abilities are. Meanwhile, Hero Rocklock freezes the walls with his object-locking quirk to block Mimic's path, and Mimic pushes walls to attack from spots Rocklock can't lock down. But Deku keeps smashing those attacks with full-force one-for-all kicks. Mimic suddenly stops attacking, leaving everyone uneasy, and in that moment of distraction, he creates walls to separate the group. Rocklock stands alone when Toga suddenly charges out of nowhere with a knife. Toga tricks Rocklock with a decoy made by Twice, then circles behind to stab him. Right after, Deku and Aizawa break through the wall, and Toga transforms into Rocklock, claiming the real one is an imposter. But Aizawa quickly spots the fake and erases Toga's quirk before she can stab Deku. And Aizawa wraps Toga up tight with his capture scarf. But Toga still manages to stab Aizawa, but Toga still lands a stab in Aizawa's back before escaping. Aizawa and Deku realize the Isekai has allied with the League of Villains. On the other side, Twice leads a copy of Rapper to fight Night Eye. However, Night Eye easily takes down Rapper's copy, leaving Twice stunned, and Night Eye's weapon is those small stamps, each weighing a heavy 5 kilograms. All Might throws the stamps right into Twice's face, making him panic and flee. His mask tears, and Twice worries that and seeing his mask tear, Twice fears he'll split into multiples again, but luckily, Toga arrives just in time to help cover the torn part. A few days earlier, Twice and Toga opposed Tomura's decision to ally with Chisaki, since he killed their comrade Magne and took Compress's arm. However, Tomura says he never saw the Isekai as allies. He was just pretending, and sent Twice and Toga to sabotage them from within. Toga and Twice shout mocking words about the Isekai loud enough for Mimic to hear. Mimic loses his temper and makes the Mimic loses his temper and shakes the entire underground base even harder. Chisaki reaches the lab to grab the bullets that permanently erase quirks, but due to the high cost of the technology, he could only make 5. When Toga and Twice first arrived at the Isekai, Chisaki interrogated them thoroughly, and a subordinate named Shin from the 8 Bullets, with his truth-forcing quirk, questioned them. Twice revealed he can create temporary copies of people, including their appearance and fighting abilities. Toga admitted she can transform into anyone whose blood she drinks. But somehow, they didn't reveal Tomura's plan to betray Chisaki. Toga and Twice start their sabotage plan, beginning by provoking Mimic, and Mimic is gearing up for one last attack before his quirk booster wears off. However, Deku spots Mimic hiding in a small hole in the ceiling, so he leaps up and smashes the hole, letting Aizawa erase Mimic's quirk. Finally, after an exhausting chase, they capture him. Meanwhile, Mirio catches up to Chisaki and Kurono before they can escape, and Chisaki realizes Mirio is the intern he met a few days ago. Mirio is about to rush in and save Eri from Chisaki when his balance suddenly fails. The one disrupting Mirio's balance is Deidoro Sakaki, from the 8 Bullets. At the same time, Shin appears and shoots at Mirio, but the bullets pass right through him. Shin's quirk is called Confession, and Deidoro Sakaki's is to cause imbalance, and these two were assigned by Chisaki to hold Mirio back so he can escape. However, Mirio phases through walls and unleashes a storm of attacks on them, and Mirio regrets leaving Eri behind once before. So this time, he's determined to save her, even if it costs his life. Mirio quickly defeats Deidoro Sakaki and Shin, then charges straight at Chisaki. Next, he attacks Chisaki and Kurono, successfully rescuing Eri, and Mirio swears not to let Eri suffer another moment of pain, but Eri fears Chisaki will kill him for sure. Chisaki admits Eri isn't his daughter, and summons sharp stone spikes to attack Mirio and Eri. And even if Eri gets hurt, he can always restore her. Mirio can't escape while carrying her. Kurono raises his gun to shoot Mirio, so he uses his cloak to hide. Since he can't touch, he sets Eri down, then charges alone to fight the 2 villains. Since they can't touch Mirio, Chisaki and Kurono take a barrage of punches from him. And clearly Mirio is the stronger fighter here. Years ago, Chisaki was an orphan adopted by the former Isekai boss, so he always strived to serve the group in gratitude. Seeing no way to beat Mirio, Chisaki throws the quirk-erasing bullets to the fallen Shin nearby, the man. And after thinking, Shin worries Mirio will use his permeation quirk to let bullets pass through. Guesses, and Mirio panics, rushing to, and, after thinking, he aims the gun at Eri instead. Just as Shin predicted, Mirio panics and rushes to Eri. And Mirio doesn't use permeation, taking the bullet to shield her. As a child, Mirio was saved from drowning by a hero, so he always dreamed of becoming an outstanding hero. Mirio loses his quirk forever after the bullet hits, but he bravely fights on to protect Eri from Chisaki, and he suffers heavy wounds from Chisaki's stone spikes. After capturing Mimic, Sunita tells everyone to keep pushing toward Chisaki, and since Sunita is badly injured, he and the police will stay to guard Mimic. Sunita puts his full trust in Deku, seeing him act more like a true hero than anyone. Meanwhile, Toga and Twice are plotting a way to make Chisaki lose. Deku, Aizawa, and All Might arrive just in time before Chisaki can finish Mirio. And Deku blasts Chisaki away, while Aizawa erases his quirk. All Might is amazed that Mirio alone injured Chisaki and his subordinates, and All Might proudly hugs Mirio and Eri. Deku and Aizawa charge at Chisaki, but Kurono surprises them with a hair attack on Aizawa. And anyone touched by his hair moves slower than normal. Right after, Chisaki regains his quirk and merges with Shin into a monstrous form, and he fuses with Shin to become a grotesque monster. Kurono restrains Aizawa and covers his eyes, so he can't erase quirks. And Kurono's quirk is using hair to slow down opponents. Everyone is shocked to learn Mirio's quirk was erased forever by Chisaki, to attack him. However, in anger, Deku hurls a massive rock at him. However, All Might tells Deku to take Mirio and Eri to safety while he fights Chisaki. And All Might feels the same rage as Deku, since he sees Mirio as his student. At the same time, he uses foresight on Chisaki to find the best outcome. Deku smashes a wall to escape with Mirio and Eri. But when he turns back, he's stunned to see All Might severely injured by Chisaki, rushing to block Chisaki's final blow, Right after, Deku rushes to block Chisaki's blow before he can finish All Might, and Deku must hold Chisaki back at all costs so Mirio and Eri can escape. Jumps into the air and delivers a powerful kick. Deku jumps into the air and delivers a devastating kick to keep Chisaki from recovering. But unfortunately, Chisaki dodges the kick just in time. Mirio struggles to carry Eri out of this dark lair. Mirio's wounds are too deep, so he faints while moving. After a fierce battle, Deku is heavily injured, while Chisaki can heal himself. And fearing Deku will be killed, Eri runs back to him in terror. All Might foresees a future where he and Deku sacrifice themselves, and Chisaki escapes. But Deku believes he can change that future. Ryukyu and the girls are still fighting the giant Rikiya, and his quirk drains life force to boost his strength. Ochako and Tsuyu are drained but still fight on, and the ground collapses, dropping Ryukyu's group and Rikiya right to Deku and Chisaki. Deku quickly asks Ochako and Tsuyu to care for All Might so he can fight, and seeing Chisaki about to grab Eri and flee, Deku chases him. It turns out Eri is the granddaughter of the former Isekai boss, and her father's mysterious quirk made him vanish, so she's called the Cursed Child. The former boss asked Chisaki to study Eri's quirk, and he discovered it's the power to rewind any living thing. Back in the present, Eri accidentally uses her quirk to separate Shin from Chisaki, and once free, Eri jumps straight back into Deku's arms. Chisaki launches sharp stones at Deku to steal Eri back. But Deku dodges while holding Eri, pushing forward, and he unleashes a 100% power kick that slams Chisaki into the ground. Deku and Eri are blown sky high by the shockwave. But Deku is amazed his leg is unharmed after that full power kick. Chisaki heals from Deku's kick and merges with Rikiya right in front of All Might and Ryukyu's group. All Might foresees Chisaki chasing Deku to the surface and killing him. And hearing that, Ochako wants to help Deku, but she's too exhausted to move. Deku realizes he's unharmed because of Eri's quirk, and Chisaki suddenly appears in a massive form to attack. Chisaki explains Eri's quirk can rewind humans back to apes, but Eri can't control it yet, so it might rewind people into nothing. However, Deku sees he can team up with Eri to use 100% of One for All, and his body won't get hurt thanks to Eri's rewind. Chisaki extracted Eri's quirk into bullets, and those bullets just rewind people too before they had quirks. As Chisaki attacks, Deku kicks him with 100% power, and Eri is unconsciously using her quirk without stopping. Chisaki always wanted to build up the Isekai to repay the boss. But the boss disliked Chisaki's dark deeds. Chisaki secretly used Eri to develop quirk-erasing bullets. With them, he plans to control heroes and villains worldwide. However, the boss discovered Chisaki's plan and demanded he stop, so Chisaki made him bedridden to act freely. Chisaki vows not to let Deku block his path to world dominance. But Deku unleashes a flurry of powerful punches to shatter Chisaki's giant shell. Then, he closes in and hits Chisaki with 100% power, knocking him out cold. Night Eye is stunned to see Chisaki defeated by Deku, a future he never foresaw. Sensing Chisaki's defeat, Kurono resolves to strike down Aizawa and vanish from this chaotic battlefield. But Tamaki and the police force arrive just in time, halting his deadly plan with unyielding determination. Meanwhile, Eri's power pulls Chisaki away from her, unraveling their twisted bond in a flash of raw energy. Deku writhes in agony, desperate and torn, unsure how to stop the little girl's overwhelming ability. Yet, fortune smiles as Aizawa uses his own quirk to halt Eri's power, bringing a moment of fragile calm. Soon after, heroes and police apprehend the entire 8 precepts of Death Gang, while injured ones like Night Eye and Mirio are rushed away by ambulances into the uncertain night. Witnessing Night Eye's grave wounds, Deku rushes to his side, urging him to fight on with heartfelt plea. Now, Night Eye sees Deku in a new light, inspired by how the boy has reshaped the threads of fate itself. Ryukyu praises Deku for his fearless bravery in the midst of that epic clash. Chisaki is now shackled by the police, his hands and feet bound as they're led to the hospital in defeat. But the villain alliance, led by Tomura, ambushes the transport convoy on the highway in a sudden storm of chaos. Their goal is the quirk-erasing bullets hidden in the vehicle, a prize that could tip the scales of power. Dabi unleashes a blazing blue flame at the police car, but the hero Snatch counters with a wall of sand, shielding all in a heroic stand. As Tomura leaps toward the police vehicle, Snatch blocks him with a surge of sand, buying precious seconds. With Dabi and Compress lending their might, Tomura breaks through and overruns the convoy in a whirlwind assault. Snatch is trapped by Compress's seal amid his fierce battle with Dabi, caught in the villain's grip. Tomura approaches Chisaki, mocking his failure with a cruel, triumphant grin. Casually, Tomura seizes the quirk-erasing bullets, leaving Chisaki helpless in his wake. Next, Tomura shatters Chisaki's arms, dooming him to a life as a broken shell forevermore. Seeing Tomura's mocking laughter, Chisaki is overcome with regret for the darkness he unleashed. Tomura and his crew vanish from the scene, leaving Chisaki to scream in utter torment. In torment, Deku and the heroes are taken to the hospital for checks. Though most are bedridden, their lives out of danger but spirits tested. Eri suddenly spikes a fever right after the battle with Chisaki ends, a sign of her inner turmoil. As Deku and Aizawa enter Night Eye's room, they find All Might there, and Recovery Girl warns his condition may not last the day. All Might and the others share final words with Night Eye, where he admits his mistake in doubting All Might's choice. Because Deku has transformed Night Eye's perspective, revealing a brighter future against all odds. Mirio breaks into sobs and rushes to Night Eye's side, who envisions a glorious hero's path for him through his foresight, but as his words fade, Night Eye slips away, leaving heartbreak in his wake. Gran Torino and All Might chase Kurogiri into a desolate forest, pursuing the villain's shadowy trail. Once they pinpoint Kurogiri's location, Gran Torino strikes fast, restraining him with precision. But Kurogiri reveals that All For One raised another besides Tomura, a hidden threat. Following All For One's orders, Kurogiri came to recruit this one to aid Tomura's cause. A colossal monster named Gigantomachia emerges, striking fear into Gran Torino and All Might's hearts. News of the Chisaki transport attack spreads on television, as Deku and the students recover thanks to Recovery Girl's healing touch. Deku arrives at Mirio's room and finds him cheerfully exercising despite the pain. Deep down, Mirio is grieving, having lost his quirk and his mentor Night Eye in one blow. Deku wonders if Mirio inheriting from All Might have spared Night Eye's life, but Mirio reassures him, praising Deku's outstanding efforts in the mission. Besides, Eri might restore Mirio's quirk once she masters her own power. So, Mirio urges Deku to keep smiling and not worry, sharing a bond of hope. That evening, Deku and his internship friends return to the dorms, where the class welcomes them after seeing the 8 Precepts news. Everyone is deeply worried, knowing their friends joined the raid on the 8 Precepts of Death. Even Mina and the class bombard them with questions, not giving anyone a chance to respond. As the class chats lively, Bakugo and Shoto suddenly excuse themselves to head to bed. They're preparing for the provisional license exam, so they need early rest for the dawn ahead. All Might and Present Mike arrive at the dorms to escort them to the exam the next morning. Gran Torino informs All Might that he captured Kurogiri after a brutal fight with Gigantomachia, but let the monster escape due to its sheer power. Present Mike chatters non-stop, annoying Bakugo, as he and All Might guide Bakugo and Shoto to the exam stadium. On the way to the stands, All Might bumps into Endeavor, while Bakugo and Shoto meet Inasa and Shiketsu students. Bakugo dives right in, teasing Seiji for their past exam showdown. The exam proctor Meira explains the rules for retakers, and as they enter the stands, Endeavor shouts encouragement to Shoto, firing up the crowd. Others are in awe, spotting All Might alongside Endeavor in this epic gathering. Meira announces that Kami will join the retake exam with the group today, and this girl is quite quirky, her words tumbling out in a confusing whirl. It turns out, Kami was knocked out last exam, so Toga impersonated her and went wild attacking Deku. This time, Gang Orca is back as proctor and challenges examinees like Bakugo and Shoto to change their attitudes. So, he's prepared a special trial to test their growth. Suddenly, dozens of elementary kids flood the arena, leaving the examinees stunned. These kids are so rowdy that even their teacher breaks down in tears of frustration. A blonde boy even lectures them bossily, grating on Bakugo's nerves. The examinees try talking to the kids, but they're like a wild storm, impossible to tame. When they spot Kami, some kids show prejudice, eyeing her warily. Gang Orca explains the task. Straighten out these rowdy kids, a tough challenge for hotheads like Bakugo. Meanwhile, Endeavor discusses the rising crime wave with All Might, eager to learn how to become a symbol of peace. After struggling, the examinees still can't figure out how to handle these mischievous kids. Bakugo realizes there's a ringleader among them, stirring up the trouble. So, he suggests they find the leader and give them a firm lesson. It's obvious the cocky blonde boy is the boss, and Inasa tries chatting with the kids but quickly loses his patience with the little demons. All Might tells Endeavor he doesn't fully know what a symbol of peace means but advises him to open his heart and be more approachable. As Shoto approaches, the girls and Kami blush at his cool charm. But Shoto's words are so plain that the kids ignore him completely. Kami suggests showing off their quirks to earn the kids' respect, to earn their respect. But these cheeky kids think they're stronger than the heroes, challenging them boldly, so they demand a showdown to see who's truly superior, Right after, the elementary kids unleash a barrage of powerful quirks, surprising everyone with their unexpected strength. This is because the next generation's quirks blend from parents, making them mightier than before. Still, the kids are young, so their powers pale against the examinee's experience. Shoto suddenly flirts, making the girls' hearts skip a beat. But it's all an illusion from Kami's quirk, weaving magic in the air. Inasa whips up a massive windstorm to lift the kids skyward, while Kami creates a stunning starry sky that captivates all. Shoto forms a vast ice park for the kids to play in, turning chaos into wonder. It was Bakugo's plan all along, using creativity to win their admiration without a fight. He even challenges the cocky blonde boy to climb the ice and join the fun. Once up there, the boy is touched by the magic of it all, his defiance melting away. In the end, the rowdy kids are won over, and Gang Orca declares the examinees passed with flying colors. Later, Seiji shares with All Might and Endeavor how Toga impersonated Kami last time, suggesting Yue and Shiketsu must team up against the villain alliance. As Endeavor tries to congratulate Shoto, he responds with cold distance, but Endeavor promises to change and become the #1 hero for real. Inasa punches himself, then steps to cheerfully greet Endeavor, forgiving his past mistakes with a gesture of reconciliation. And so, the second provisional license exam ends on a hopeful note. A few days later, Night Eye's funeral is held, attended by many heroes in somber tribute. And the internship program ends, so students return to normal classes. Erie's quirk-releasing horn is shrinking now that she's recovered from her ordeal. In the following days, Class 1A students intensify their quirk training, and during practice, Aoyama shows Deku his new laser shot technique. But Aoyama gets a stomachache, so Deku helps him to a quiet corner. Aoyama realizes he and Deku share quirks that don't mesh well with their bodies. Because every use brings unintended injuries, a painful price for power. Gazing into Aoyama's eyes, Deku senses he's hiding something deeper. Class 1A, students are thrilled about the upcoming school festival, and while sports festivals spotlight the hero course, the school festival lets other departments shine. But Aizawa insists Class 1A must present an impressive performance. Tenya rallies everyone to brainstorm ideas for the school festival. And Denki suggests opening a maid cafe with the girls as servers. Mineta tries to chime in but gets shut down quickly. Tenya listens to each idea and writes them on the board. But arguments erupt, leaving them with no progress. If they don't decide soon, Aizawa will make them attend extra classes during the festival. That night, they continue brainstorming back at the dorms. And they want something fun that brings joy to everyone involved. Shoto surprises them by suggesting a music party, leaving all in shock, because Shoto's always so reserved, no one expected this from him. The class agrees a music party would draw a big crowd. They ask Kyoka to play, knowing her passion for instruments runs deep, but Kyoka's never performed for a crowd, so she's hesitant and shy. However, her friends encourage her, praising her skills warmly. And after hearing their words, Kyoka agrees to perform at the upcoming event. Deku and Mirio visit Eri in the hospital, hearing she's doing better now, and Eri is still under close watch to prevent her quirk from spiraling out of control. Eri is grateful to Deku and the heroes for rescuing her from Overhaul's grasp, but she blames herself for Mirio losing his quirk in the rescue. Mirio tells her not to feel guilty, wanting her to live happily instead. Yet, after Overhaul's torment, Eri has forgotten how to smile, lost in her shadows. After thinking it over, Deku asks Aizawa to let Eri attend the school festival, and Mirio believes the festive atmosphere could help her rediscover her smile. So, they'll try to convince the principal to let her join. Meanwhile, the police are hunting a bizarre criminal. And this villain loves robbing places and posting videos on YouTube for fame. Gentle doesn't steal for money, he craves notoriety through his videos. Accompanying Gentle is La Brava, a tiny girl who films his escapades, and it seems he's plotting his greatest performance to etch his name in history. The world teeters on chaos as the hero-villain war rages without end, and Gentle yearns to become a legendary figure in this turbulent era. However, his goal is to be an elegant villain, so he only targets corrupt companies that evade justice. La Brava is frustrated that people focus on big names like Stain. Even comments mock Gentle for small heists, so he's planning a massive one to astonish the world. This morning, Bakugo overhears general course students blaming the hero course for attracting villain attacks. Kyoka thinks they should play EDM music at the festival to vibe with the youth. So, they need to pick members skilled in instruments to form a band. Everyone was utterly amazed as Bakugo played the drums with the skill of a true professional. And it seemed Bakugo was fuming after overhearing the general class students badmouthing the hero course. So, Bakugo vowed to demolish those general class students with his powerful drum beats. It turned out Gentle was plotting to infiltrate the UA Academy Festival, because once he broke in, he would surely become world famous. From a young age, Momo had learned piano, so she took on the role of pianist, and Mina suggested adding light effects to make it feel like a grand concert. So, a effects team was formed with Aoyama as the central disco ball. Next, the class needed to find a lead singer for their band. And everyone scrambled to be the lead, even though their voices sounded like quacking ducks. Hagakure suggested Kyoka give singing a try, and everyone was stunned by the incredible voice that echoed from her. So, the class decided to make her the lead singer. However, the band still lacked 2 electric guitar players. And Denki landed the spot, while Mineta couldn't even hold the guitar because he was too short. Fumikage had learned electric guitar since childhood, so he became the second guitarist. Meanwhile, Mineta was sulking alone but brightened up when Mina invited him to join her dance team with the girls. The next morning, Deku went to tell All Might about his battle with Overhaul, and Deku realized he still didn't know how to handle enemies who attack from a distance like him. Right after, All Might took Deku to the forest behind the school to help him create a long-range attack, and he told Deku to try using 20% of his power and kick to generate a wind blast. All Might knew Deku could only use 20% of his power for a short time, but Deku just needed to activate that 20% in the moment of the strike. And he came up with a finger snap move that packed the punch of a machine gun. As a dancer, Mina took charge of teaching Deku and the others how to dance. But their dance practice suddenly halted when Mirio and Eri appeared. Aizawa had gotten permission from the principal for Eri to attend the school festival, and Mirio invited Deku to join him in showing Eri around the academy. Today was the weekend, so everyone was bustling with preparations for the upcoming festival. And as Deku and Mirio walked with Eri, they suddenly ran into Monoma and some Class B students. Monoma boasted that Class B would perform an amazing play to outshine Class A, but the other Class B students knocked him out before he could say anything worse. Heido was the school vice queen, so she was preparing for the beauty pageant. But every year, she lost to the beauty queen named BB from the support courses Class 3G, knowing that Itsuka from Class 1B would also participate. And Deku learned that Itsuka from Class 1B would join the beauty contest this year. The support course was preparing thoroughly, as the festival was their chance to shine. And Hatsume would showcase her best inventions to attract investors. When they reached the cafeteria for lunch, Deku and Mirio accidentally met Principal Nezu. And Nezu revealed that the police had tried to ban the school festival, because the villain alliance might exploit the chaos to attack. But Deku believed that in tense times, they needed the festival more to inspire hope in students. Midnight assured Deku's group that security would be extremely tight at the festival. And Deku vowed to dance beautifully so Eri could smile. However, as soon as they returned to class, Mina suddenly removed him from the dance group, because they needed someone with Deku's strength to help Aoyama move across the stage while glowing. And after the class begged, Deku reluctantly agreed to help Aoyama move, even though he had boasted to Eri that he would dance at the festival. That afternoon, Deku went to the back of the school to train his long-range attacks with All Might, and they accidentally encountered Hatsume testing her robots there. Hatsume said she had finished the support item Deku had asked her to create, and that item would make it easier for Deku to use his new moves. All Might revealed that he had once used support gear too, but he warned Deku not to rely on it too much. Meanwhile, Gentle was meticulously planning his infiltration of the UA festival, but his goal was just to expose UA's security flaws without harming the students. And La Brava, being a hacker, would help him shut down UA's security system. It turned out Gentle used to sit at home posting videos, but no one watched them. And La Brava was his only fan who came for an autograph. With La Brava's support, Gentle's channel gained more viewers. But they still needed this heist to reach the top. Just one night until the festival, so Class 1A was buzzing with excitement. But when checking equipment, Deku found some items damaged from intense training. So, Deku said he would go into town to buy new gear before the festival started. The next morning, as Deku was training, Hatsume suddenly appeared. And Hatsume wanted to give him the support gear a pair of gloves she had made. All Might was surprised at how compact modern support gear was compared to the old days. Right after, Deku rushed out to buy supplies before the festival started at 10 a.m., but while hurrying back to school, he bumped into Gentle and La Brava. Gentle was disguised, preparing to infiltrate UA, and Gentle recognized Deku as a UA student from seeing him on television during the sports festival. Deku had occasionally seen Gentle's videos online, so he recognized him by his voice. As Gentle was about to leave, he sensed the fierce intent radiating from Deku, and Deku resolved to capture Gentle right there, knowing he was targeting the UA festival. However, Gentle stayed calm and asked La Brava to film his fight with Deku. And Gentle openly admitted to Deku that he planned to infiltrate the UA festival. As Deku charged, he got trapped in an air membrane created by Gentle's elasticity quirk, and Gentle made the membrane rebound, sending Deku flying back. Deku kept charging, but Gentle made the ground elastic, flinging him into the air. Meanwhile, Gentle and La Brava leaped on air membranes toward UA before the festival began. If Gentle infiltrated UA, the festival would be cancelled, and Deku knew how much Eri and his friends had been looking forward to it, so he vowed to stop Gentle and keep the festival going. Right after, Deku snapped his fingers, firing an air bullet that hit Gentle's back, and he gained momentum, leaping toward Gentle and shoving him into a construction site. It turned out the gloves from Hatsume helped Deku aim his shots more accurately, and Gentle was just dangling from a steel beam, completely unharmed. However, Gentle tried to explain to Deku that he didn't want to hurt anyone, he just wanted to film an infiltration video to gain fame. La Brava panicked when she saw Gentle being restrained by Deku. But Deku refused to let a villain infiltrate his academy, no matter the reason. Seeing he couldn't convince Deku, Gentle had to continue the fight. And he made the surrounding steel beams elastic, making it hard for Deku to aim. Gentle unscrewed a steel beam and bounced it toward the pedestrians below. So, Deku rushed in and used all his strength to catch the massive beam. With Deku pinned down, Gentle and La Brava casually headed to UA. But Deku still attacked Gentle with air bullets as he moved. Meanwhile, Monoma was mocking Uraraka for wearing a dress in the beauty contest. And it turned out Monoma had signed her up so she couldn't be around to punch him. Itsuka entered so she couldn't be around. Nejira Hado was eager to compete with Uraraka in the UA beauty pageant. But Bibimi believed she would win the title again this year. And Mirio was driving Eri to the festival to watch Deku and his class perform. After setting the beam down, Deku chased after Gentle, and he realized Gentle couldn't undo the elasticity once it was applied. Deku memorized the air cushion positions and used them to approach Gentle, and he kicked off an air cushion to land behind Gentle and land a direct hit. Right after, Deku quickly pinned Gentle and La Brava to the ground. And La Brava recalled how she was once a miserable otaku in middle school. Even the boys she secretly liked teased her about her appearance, but in her despair she stumbled upon Gentle's video. And Gentle's video brought light into her life, so she became a fan and sought him out. Eventually, La Brava became Gentle's assistant and has been with him ever since. While being held by Deku, La Brava suddenly confessed her feelings for Gentle, and La Brava's power boosts the strength of the one she loves. Right after, Gentle easily flung Deku away, his power multiplied tenfold. But Deku didn't give up, having fought enemies far stronger than Gentle before. Gentle couldn't believe Deku could match him with his boosted strength. And La Brava thought her love wasn't enough to secure Gentle's victory, boosted strength, and La Brava thought, Gentle created layers of air cushions to press Deku into the ground, and he always dreamed of fame to fulfill his childhood ambition. Deku burrowed through the ground to escape Gentle's thick air cushions. And he argued that Gentle shouldn't crush others' hopes for his own gain. Thick air cushions of Gentle. And he argued. Since high school, Gentle had dreamed of becoming a famous hero. Despite being a poor student, and while sipping tea one day, he saw a worker in danger. Gentle tried to use air cushions to save him, but it accidentally interfered with a pro-hero's rescue, and he was charged with obstructing justice, disappointing his family. After that event, Gentle became a jobless outcast at the bottom of society, and in his utter despair he turned into a villain. Gentle was determined to defeat Deku and infiltrate UA. Utter despair. Gentle was determined to, but La Brava's power only lasted briefly, so Gentle was ultimately taken down by Deku's powerful kick. When she saw Gentle restrained by Deku, La Brava cried and ran to save him, but she couldn't do anything to Deku. However, Gentle struggled to throw Deku off for one last embrace. Hounddog and Ectoplasm discovered Gentle while on patrol, and Gentle took all the blame so La Brava wouldn't be involved. Before being taken away, Gentle told Deku that he was once a UA student, but had fallen and met this tragic end. The whole class was worried because Deku had gone to buy supplies early and hadn't returned. But he made it back to school with the gear just before the festival started. Right after, Class 1A members stepped onto the stage before thousands of spectators. And many came just to criticize them, not to enjoy the music. However, as soon as Class 1A started performing, the stage exploded with energy. And the entire audience got fired up by Class 1A's passionate show. Deku only danced with the band for a bit before running to help Eri move on the roof. And Eri finally smiled brightly amid the dazzling stage lights. The other spectators danced wildly, caught in the performance's thrill. Right after, Class 1B performed a chaotic comedy of Romeo and Juliet. But their silly play had everyone laughing non-stop. The teachers scolded Deku for fighting Gentle alone instead of reporting it, and Hounddog blamed Aizawa since he was Deku's teacher. When Deku returned to the stage, Aizawa praised their incredible performance, and Deku was deeply moved seeing Aizawa smile so joyfully. The other students complimented Class 1A's show. Even those who criticized the hero course felt ashamed and apologized. And Mineta was eagerly heading to the beauty pageant full of lovely contestants. In the pageant, Uraraka wore a dress and performed a fierce martial arts routine, and Bibimi from the support course built a flashy robot with her face on it. Nijire Hado delivered a stunning aerial dance that left everyone in awe. And in everyone's eyes, she looked just like a beautiful fairy. The students from Class 1A then eagerly explored the programs of the other classes, discovering new adventures together. Meanwhile, Uraraka won this year's Beauty Queen title, surrounded by her friends' joyful and heartfelt cheers. That afternoon, Deku warmly gifted an apple candy to little Eri before Mirio gently took her back home, and Deku promised that he would soon reunite with Eri to take her to even brighter, more joyful places. However, the next morning, Deku was utterly astonished to see Eri appear at the dorms, and since Eri's grandfather hasn't woken up yet, everyone will care for her at the academy for a while. A group of wild cats suddenly visited the dorms ever since the summer camp began, and Deku was overjoyed to reunite with the young boy he had bravely rescued before. All Might had his powers stolen by All for One, so now he's working from the office to support the team. And Mandalay announced that the hero rankings will soon be updated, leaving everyone curious about who will claim the top spot now that All Might has retired. Many days later, the hero ranking event unfolded with millions tuning in eagerly, and heroes from rank 10 upwards were called to the stage one by one. Endeavor was named the third-ranked hero despite his injuries from the Camino incident. Hawks claimed second place, as the youngest hero in the lineup. The former second-ranked hero naturally took first place after All Might's retirement, but people still worried that Endeavor couldn't replace All Might as the symbol of peace. Uraraka boldly declared that Endeavor deserved the top spot more than anyone, given his fierce spirit, because Endeavor fought valiantly in the Camino event, enduring severe wounds. But Endeavor urged everyone to judge him by his actions, not just words. After the announcement ended, Endeavor angrily challenged Hawks over his earlier remarks. But Hawks revealed it was just a test, with no real malice. Hawks wanted to team up with Endeavor to investigate a Nomu base linked to the villain alliance. Meanwhile, the Doctor released a powerful Nomu named High End into the city. Hawks took Endeavor out for dinner, seamlessly discussing their upcoming plans. And Hawks, always helping others, so he's one of the most beloved heroes around. Endeavor, however, isn't as popular due to his intimidating appearance. So when a young boy wanted his autograph, Endeavor approached to chat warmly, but the boy was disappointed, expecting Endeavor to be the cool, distant hero he admired. Right after, Hawks and Endeavor headed to a restaurant for dinner. But as soon as they sat down, High End suddenly attacked their spot, and Endeavor unleashed a massive blast to hurl the Nomu away. Meanwhile, Shoto's sister Fuyumi and brother Natsuo visited their mother in the hospital, where Rei was in high spirits from Shoto's heartfelt letters. Natsuo also told Shoto that Endeavor had been voted the #1 hero, but Natsuo still couldn't forgive Endeavor for how he treated their family in the past. However, Shoto noticed that Endeavor quietly visits the hospital daily to replace the flowers by her window. So, it seems Endeavor is trying to change and make amends with the family. After taking Endeavor's hit, High End regenerated almost instantly. In fact, High End could even speak like a person, unlike other mindless Nomu. High End and Endeavor clashed in an earth-shaking battle that rattled the entire city, leaving Endeavor wounded from a devastating blow. High End's attack even collapsed a building, and Hawks used his feathers to swiftly rescue everyone inside. Hawks' power lets him control the feathers on his wings with precision. Endeavor threw everything he had at High End, but it barely made a dent, and Hawks used up his feathers, saving people, leaving him grounded. Beyond its endless regeneration, High End could think and strategize like a human, but Endeavor was determined to defeat it and protect the citizens and his own family. Suddenly, Endeavor blazed up like a brilliant torch, astonishing everyone around, and he unleashed a terrifying inferno to incinerate High End. Yet, High End survived by ripping off its own head and throwing it away, then ambushed Endeavor unprepared, inflicting heavy wounds. The whole world watched Endeavor get knocked down on live television, and people began to panic as their top hero fell. Endeavor struggled to his feet to keep fighting High End, but it extended its arm and hurled him into a nearby building. And Natsuo with Fuyumi grew deeply worried about Endeavor, despite their lingering resentment toward him. Seeing Endeavor unable to move, the citizens fled in fear. Shoto froze in shock as he watched the chaotic scene unfold on the news. Yet, Endeavor rose again to chase High End and continue the battle. And he realized High End's weakness was its head, which is why it threw it away earlier. Hawks rushed to support Endeavor, recalling how he had always admired him since childhood. Hawks used his feathers to propel Endeavor through the air at an incredible speed. And upon reaching High End, Endeavor landed a fiery punch straight to its face. Endeavor then dragged High End into the sky for his final strike. Up there, he could unleash his full power without endangering the people below. Endeavor roared and blasted a massive inferno, reducing High End to ashes. Thrilling as Endeavor fell back to the, and everyone held their breath in thrilling suspense as Endeavor plummeted back to the ground. But Endeavor stood tall, raising his hand in triumphant victory, bringing joy to the crowd. Thank you all for watching this full summary of Season 4 of My Hero Academia. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications on new videos from the channel.